Hi there, it's Mr. Bowdery here, and I'm just going to run over some of my favourite revision tips with you because I think we're at that time of the year where you're beginning to think about what you can revise, but also how you can revise. And sometimes we fall into the trap of just doing what we think is helpful without considering maybe what could be more helpful. So today I'm going to run over a guide on how to use the following: flashcards, mind maps, Cornell notes, Quizlet, and Tutor to You. These are three of my favourite techniques and two of my favourite websites when it comes to revising effectively. My top tip throughout this whole video is that just rereading your notes does not work. It might make you feel good, it might make you feel confident, it might make you feel like you've been productive, it might make you think that you've done enough to pass an exam. But reading your notes again and again and again is proven by much research to be ineffective in comparison to actually doing something with your notes. Just like in a lesson, the best way of learning something and remembering something is to be thinking about that and be active when you are thinking about that. Not to be running around, but to be mentally active, to be mentally engaged. So one of the things I'm going to be talking to you about a lot is how you can be productive with your revision. Doing something with your notes is a lot better than just rereading them. So without further ado, the first technique that I think is one of the most helpful is the classic flashcards. We all love them, but how can we get the most out of them and how can we use them the most effectively when it comes to our revision? These little guys are fantastic for knowledge recall, and they're really helpful for helping you remember key pieces of information, key terms, key dates, key people, key figures. When it comes to using flashcards, I would always recommend that you keep the information simple. Do not try to cover lots and lots of information on one flashcard. In fact, try to reduce how much you write. I would say a maximum of 12 words per side. Now, if you are using a flashcard, you are going to be using this to try and remember the information that is on that flashcard. You are going to be testing yourself or getting someone else to test you. If you're going to write an entire paragraph on this flashcard, there is no way that you can remember the whole paragraph. If you write 12 words, the 12 most important words that each of them can be expanded in your description verbally, then you are going to be able to remember those 12 words. I would also say that you should focus on one key term per flashcard. I've seen some people try to cover all 5 pillars of Islam on one flashcard. Just use 5 flashcards. One key term per flashcard makes it really simple and means that you can also know if you have remembered this information, you can put that flashcard in the remembered pile and the rest of them stay in the not yet learned pile. If you've got all 5 of them on all 5 key terms on one flashcard, you can't do that. So one key term per flashcard. On the other side, try not to cover everything on your flashcard. Sometimes we fall into the trap of having to write everything about a topic and every piece of information we've ever learned. Try to focus on 2 key pieces of information per flashcard. If you're writing about Salah in Islam, for example, you might want to write on one flashcard 2 things that Muslims do whilst they pray. On another flashcard, you might want to write 2 reasons why Salah is an important pillar for Muslims. On a third flashcard, you might want to write 2 contrasting ways that Sunnis and Shias pray. And on a fourth flashcard, you might want to write 2 quotes that you've learned about Salah. So you've got 4 different flashcards, but each of them focus on a different thing, and you are not covering everything on one flashcard. Also, try not to write small, okay? Try to write big and bold, because if you're using these flashcards yourself and not having someone else to test you, then you're going to want to be able to see them when they're laid out on your desk. And if you can't read what's on the flashcard, it's not going to be helpful whatsoever. My top tip when it comes to flashcards is writing the key term on the front of the card and the definition on the back. Don't write them both on the same side. The reason I say this is because if you haven't got anybody around that can test you on your flashcards and you want to test yourself by writing the key term on the front and definition on the back, you can do this. Because what you can do is you can lay all of your flashcards out on your desk or on your floor, and you can force yourself to recall what is on the back of that flashcard. So all of the sides that you can see, you might have a mixture of some key terms and some definitions, and your test is to try and recall what is on the other side of every single flashcard on your floor. You can't do that if all the information is written on one side. So key term on the front, definition on the back. My next top tip or top technique is mind maps. We all love them, but again, are we getting the most out of them? These are great when it comes to linking topics together. So whereas flashcards, I've encouraged you to write one key term per flashcard, mind maps are great for two reasons. Either if you have got a big topic with lots of key terms and you want to link them all together and make that topic feel a bit smaller, or if you've got a big idea or a big theory, such as the Trinity in Christianity or Tawhid in Islam. These are really big topics and big theories with a lot of different pieces to them. You can put that in the middle of the mind map, and then around it you can unpack that idea. So you can expand on it with quotes and pictures and key terms that link to it. So it's great for basically either making big topics smaller or unpacking the biggest topics and just looking at all the different aspects of them. So when it comes to do's and don'ts of mind maps, I would encourage you to plan your mind map before you write it. Sometimes we start writing a mind map and we've got halfway through and we've realised we've forgotten to include a topic and we've run out of space and we can't include it. If you plan your mind map out first, get a bit of scrap paper and you just write where you want to put all the key terms and you think about where those links are. So on your paper, map them out and you say, right, I've got this key term on the top left-hand side, I've got this key term on the top right-hand side. Now those two link together, so I need to leave enough space to draw a line between those two. And you're really thinking about where your map is going. It's going to make it a whole lot more useful when it's finished, and it's going to be a much better resource when it's finished. So think about where you can put the links before you write the mind map. Similarly, on the flip side, do not write too many words. A bit like flashcards, you are only writing the key information. Sometimes we worry that if we don't write it down, we're going to forget it. That's not true. Your memory is amazing. If you write just one word that is going to be a trigger, a reminder of everything else, then your brain will do the rest of the work. So if your mind map just has one word, then your brain can go, okay, so this word means that, and I can associate that definition with this, and that definition means this, and that's important because your brain's doing all of that work. That's just got it from one word. Okay, so do not write loads of words down on your mind map, just write down the words that you need. Similarly, do not try to cram everything together on your mind map. Try and use a big piece of paper like A3 or two sides of A4 together, but do not cram it all in one small corner, because if you're going to be doing that, you're not going to be able to see anything on the mind map, and it's going to be really stressful and you're not going to be able to understand it. My top tip for mind maps is to colour code them. In RE and sociology, we have a lot of different techniques and a lot of different assessment criteria. We need to know quotes, we need to know influences, we need to know beliefs, we need to know contrasts between different believers. There's loads of different things that we need to know, so colour code them. Make your quotes red, make your influences blue, make your beliefs green, make your contrasts purple, and so on and so forth. That means that when you look at your mind map and you are looking for a quote on the Trinity, your Trinity mind map will have two quotes and they're both highlighted in red, which means that you can really quickly see what your quotes are. It's just a really helpful extra layer to your mind map that makes them even more useful. My next one are Cornell notes. Now, Cornell notes are a thing that's often used by A-level students and university students, but I'm going to get you guys to start using them a little bit more because they are such a helpful way of reducing down large amounts of text and turning your notes into a revision tool. So before I look at the do's and don'ts of Cornell notes, I'm going to talk about how they work, because you might not have come across them before, and if you have come across them, you might not be as familiar with them as you are with mind maps and flashcards. So when you get your sheet of paper, and this can be on a Word document or it could be written out on a piece of paper, you want to get a ruler and you want to split your page into the following sections. You draw a line across the top of your page, leaving about 3 or 4 lines from the top. That's where you're going to write your title of the lesson or the topic, and you're going to write your date. Just really good for organising your work. You're then going to draw a vertical line downwards, and you can see from the picture it's a little bit left of centre, and you're going to draw that line down to about 7, 8, 9 lines off the bottom of the page. You then end that line and you draw another horizontal line across. Now you should have 4 sections: the section at the top for the title, section at the bottom for the summary, and then 2 sections, one much larger than the other, in the middle of your page. That much larger section is where you're going to put your main notes. Now these could be notes that you've taken in class that you're going to rewrite in your Cornell notes. You could transform your notes that you've got in class into Cornell notes without having to rewrite them, or you could use a resource which I am going to recommend, which is called Tutor to You, where they have written up a lot of revision notes for you, and you can just copy and paste these into a Word document, and then you can start Cornell notes with that. So you haven't even got to write the main chunk of work out. What you do with these main notes is you make sure you've chunked them into paragraphs, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, depending on how long the notes are. And then in the left-hand column, I want you to pick out, first of all, the key terms that are in this paragraph and write them down in the left-hand column with definitions if you need them, but also leave space for these questions. That's going to be the main part of your Cornell notes. What you're going to do is you're going to read the text that you've got in the main body 1 paragraph at a time. Okay, you are then, once you've read 1 paragraph, you are then going to write at least 2 questions in the left-hand column next to that paragraph, which can be answered by the text in the paragraph. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again. You're going to read 1 paragraph at a time. You're going to write at least 2 questions next to that paragraph that can be answered by the text in the paragraph. You are then going to highlight the answers in the paragraph. And there you've got very simple question and answer, and you have reduced your big notes down into a set of questions and answers, which you can now use to either test yourself or get someone else to test you. So suddenly your notes have become a revision tool, and they're now a lot more than simply notes. An example of this could be you had a paragraph on the Shahada in Islam. Now the Shahada, the paragraph about the Shahada might be that it is the first pillar in Islam, and it's the pillar which Muslims perform in order to become a Muslim, or people perform to become a Muslim. So you've got this paragraph. Your 2 questions from that paragraph could be, first of all, what number pillar is the Shahada? And the second question could be one reason, or tell me one reason why the Shahada is important. The answers would be, in the first sentence, you highlight the word first, because it's the first pillar of Islam, and the second answer for why is it important is it's because it's the pillar which people say in order to become a Muslim. So you're writing a question and you're highlighting the answers. At the bottom of that page, you are summarizing all of those notes in a few key words, 1 sentence, or a collection of images or icons that you can use to just summarize all that information. Your do's and don'ts for Cornell notes, as I've already said, don't do all the work yourself. Use Tutor to You, use the notes that are there, or BBC Bite Size, wherever you've got lots of revision notes. Even a revision guide itself often has a lot of notes but hasn't got much else. So use those notes and do something with them. Don't just write pointless questions. In that example of the Shahada, a pointless question would be, what religion is the Shahada used in? It would be really pointless because you know what the answer is to that. You haven't got to use that in your exam. It's never going to come up. You're never going to be asked, what religion are you studying? Because everyone knows you're doing Islam. So you haven't got to write that question. Write questions which are going to be unlocking the key information in that paragraph. My top tip with Cornell notes is try to keep all your notes on 1 page. It's a lot more helpful if you've got it on 1 page than if you've got to be turning your page to read more of your notes. It keeps it all there and it keeps it nice and neat and tidy. Okay, moving on to the first of my 2 websites that I highly recommend. The first is QUIZLET. It's basically flashcards, but online. So you've not got to do all the hard work of making your own flashcards. Now, I have already put up there flashcards for all the key terms in RE and all the key terms in sociology. Other teachers will have done the same for their subjects. All you need to do is sign in with a free account and you can start accessing all of the flashcards up there. Now, when it comes to Quizlet, I would recommend that you focus on 1 topic at a time. I'd rather you spent 20 minutes on one topic and then stopped, rather than spending 2 hours on lots of topics. That is more beneficial for your cognitive load, okay? The amount of information that your brain can handle at any one time. There is such a thing as brain overload, and if you are going to be looking at loads of different topics all at once, you're going to begin to forget what you've looked at. I'd rather you focused on one topic and really got good at that one and then moved on to another topic the next night. And really don't worry if you get things wrong, because Quizlet is a lot of games, a lot of tests, a lot of chances for you to test your knowledge. And if you don't really do very well in the first one, that's fine, because that's why we're here. We're not revising because we know everything. We're revising because we want to know more and we want to get better at what we do and don't know. My top tip for Quizlet is to check out the games. There's loads of different things you can do on Quizlet. You can learn things, you can test yourself with them, you can do spelling checks, but the games are a great way of testing your knowledge, and they're a fun way of doing it as well. I would recommend that if you try a game, see how you score. If you score quite poorly on the game, so anything sort of below 70%, if you score poorly on that game, then go back over the information, test yourself again, learn it again, and then play the game again to see if your knowledge has improved. Quizlet is a great way of testing your knowledge. I would also recommend Tutor to You. Now, this is written by specialists, so it's people who know a lot about these subjects. And again, there's more than just RE, there's more than just sociology, but obviously that's what I use these websites for. And there's loads of useful tools for acing exams, so revision notes and other tips and tricks. My recommendation with this, again, is to focus on one topic at a time for the same reasons I mentioned already. And also, don't just sit there and read the notes. As I've said at the start of this video, it does not work if you just sit there and read the notes. Do something with them. And I would recommend that what you do with Tutor to You is either make them into flashcards, make the information into a mind map, or use the information as a part of CORNELL notes. And that's my top tip, using this information with other tools such as flashcards, mind maps, or CORNELL notes. I hope this has been a helpful summary. If you have any questions, please do get in touch. Happy revising.